19th. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Acker?
Here.
Mr. Amadon?
Here.
Mr. Gobb?
Here.
Ms. McIntyre?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Councilman Rohr? And Chairman Lewis.
Can I have a motion to excuse Mr. Smith, Chairman Lewis, and Councilman Rohr?
Here.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Mr. Amadon?
Yes.
Mr. Gobb?
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre?
Yes.
Thank you.
We will postpone item number 2, election of officers for permanent officers, but we would like to accept nominations for an acting chairman for this meeting only.
Just say it.
I'll nominate you for acting chair.
Thank you. I accept your nomination.
I think we have to vote on it.
Do we have a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other nominations? We'll close the nominations. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Acker?
Yay.
Mr. Amadon?
Yay.
Mr. Gobb?
Yes.
And Ms. McIntyre?
Yes.
All right.
And I will turn it over to Mr. Amadon.
All right.
Do you have an agenda?
Yes, I do. So,
You're at 3.
right, for the approval of the motion for the Airport Commission meeting on April 19th, 2018, as recorded.
And just a reminder to all members, if you did read the minutes, you can vote affirmatively, because if we don't have a 4-0 vote, we'll have to vote at the next meeting.
So
No,
we-
it's not a problem if it doesn't pass.
I move we accept the minutes as written.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. Acker?
Yay.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gobb?
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre?
Yes.
And Chairman Amadon?
Yes.
Okay.
And now we come to the public comments. Don't see any, so move on to the letter regarding Shamrock's departure.
Do we have a letter from Shamrock saying they want to leave?
We have an MOU from Shamrock that was their attorney and our attorney had signed, stating in the next couple of months they would be departing.
But we have nothing from Shamrock.
Yes, it's from Shamrock's attorney. A memorandum of understanding saying that in the next couple of months they will be departing with a departure on how they would leave.
Can we see a copy of that?
I don't have one currently, but you got it with you, Kevin? Does everybody want a copy?
That would be great, yes.
One I gave you yesterday.
Could you make one for me?
Yeah.
Or see that I get that back, please?
That's what you got. Yes. Okay.
We also had a meeting that you guys probably aren't privileged to with Mr. West, Shamrock's attorney, and he had asked us to put the MOU together at a rapid pace due to there was a window of opportunity for Mr. Young somewhere else to obtain. So he'd asked that we did that in a quick fashion in order for him to leave. So.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking is I have talked to Mr. Young, and Kevin probably knows I've talked to Mr. Young. He doesn't want to leave. That's why I'm bringing that up. And due to the fact that he is a veteran, I support him 100%, obviously, because it's going to destroy him and his family with the cost of him moving out of there. That's why I'm inquiring.
Okay, well, we'll have a copy of the MOU that he signed. Be in your hands here recently. You know, my dad's veteran also. He doesn't, you know, it has nothing to do with the gentleman being a veteran. We were approached by 3 individuals. Or is it 2, Kevin?
I know if it was a city manager's office that was approached, and then it was at least 2 as well.
It was at least 2, if not 3 individuals that are interested in renting that facility. Per law, we can't just adhere to one person only having complete rights to that facility. So
Is that the only facility the city owns out there?
for an FBO to utilize,
Is that the only facility on the airport that the city leases to a private individual?
no, all of our T hangars are leased to private individuals.
So when those leases when they end, do we go out and ask everybody who was interested in bidding on those T hangars to come in and bid?
We have a revolving list on the T hangars of people that are interested that we contact and ask them if they're interested in leasing
So
those.
in this case, Shamrock is not exempt from entering a bid.
They never have been.
I know.
And Shane was told that up front.
Okay.
Yeah, they never have been. And I mean, I'm going to be upfront and honest with you. Shane would not have known anything about it if I didn't approach him early in this year, because he did not read what it was sent to him by the city staff in November about us at the end of his lease in December 31st of 2018, putting this out for an RFP for bid.
Okay.
I hadn't heard anything, probably February, middle of February.
Went out October 30th.
Right, it went out October 30th, but it was probably middle of February. And Shane hadn't approached me, or hadn't said anything about it. And so I just went over there one day and I said, hey, Shane, you realize you did read everything that you got October 30th, correct? And he said, no, I did not. So that's when we had a conversation one-on-one. I said, well, you know, I've always had a working relationship with Shane. So I wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on. He said, okay. And he appreciated it. So that was the way that was left. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I apologize.
So when did this take place? But I don't see,
When did which portion take place?
when did this come out?
The MOU, there's not a date on this copy here.
Yeah, effective 31st day of May
May 31st,
2018.
correct. Yeah, there's not a usual date on the back for some reason.
So when it says effective of the 31st of May, that's what this memorandum of understanding?
Correct.
Correct, it does not mean his departure is May 31st.
But
If you
that-
read through the entire thing, it's basically a departure
Okay,
on, an agreement on the departure and
which
And-
is in December. The
or
lease
sooner.
okay.
Yeah, if you read through it, it was actually,
Okay,
we were asked to put something together. He was talking about vacating in the next 60 days when this all first came down. And there's an interim term from when the city has an FBO to when Mr. Young leaves, the process that would take place with the 2 attorneys.
So let me understand this. Shamrock can submit a bid under the RFP.
That I'm aware of, Shamrock's never been told that they cannot submit a bid.
So they can.
That I'm aware of, like, I'm not an attorney, but as I'm aware of, they've always been told that they can. Yeah, you want a copy of the October 30th letter also?
Oh, no, that's fine.
I think it does say that.
Just with the lease, that it states, you can have that copy, that we're notifying him that requests will go out, and that at the time that requests go out, Shamrock will be able to bid as well.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
So he didn't bid?
It hasn't went out yet.
No.
The RFP's not even written.
Oh, all right.
If you remember the last meeting we had when Tom was here, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here on the agenda, as part of the business plan.
When will the bids be open? I mean, when will the period be open to submit a bid?
The RFP's not even written yet to
Okay.
go out for bid, so
All right,
we have an outside consultant, CMT. I don't know how much you've been involved or know about the past, about the business plan and everything that's taking place.
yeah, I've talked to Mr. Holman.
Holman about that, so you know everything that's already going on. He's waiting on CMT, I believe,
Yeah.
to get back with him. I think as of about 2 weeks ago, he had a conversation, and one of the gentlemen had been out of town, Mr. Wasn't Mr. Eaton, I forget the gentleman's name.
So now we're just discussing the letter that's going out to the tenants, is that the letter regarding Shamrock's departure, or?
That's in the packet.
Yeah, that's in the packet.
That's just the letter that goes out to the tenants asking them what they'd like to see there?
Yeah, and like I said, this kind of runs together a little bit, but at the last airport commission meeting, if I remember correctly, there was a discussion about people would like to have some input on what we were actually looking for the FBO. So that's the qualifications, actually underneath number 6, discussion of desired qualifications for new aircraft maintenance service provider. If anybody had anything to add to the RFP that's on the commission now, would be a great time to let us know, so I can let Mr. Holman know.
So the engineering firm is going to put it together? Is that with
As far
the
as
city's input? Is that how it's going to work, or?
correct, with Bill's oversight and Tom's oversight. That is one of their, if you jump down to number 8, updated the business plan, building rental, fuel, ground lease rates, RFP language for maintenance and FBO operators. A and B underneath section, or underneath number 8 here are the top 2 priorities for CMT on the business plan to get going. And I know at this time that Tom had initially wanted the RFP, I believe, to be out for the FBO. But of course it's not, but that's right now, that's their 2 top priorities, part of the business plan, or our A and B on number 8 there.
Kevin, have you spoken with any of the other airports and to find out what they might have in theirs? If they sent a request out, or is it not?
It was
it not?
superseded by the city manager's office wanting to go with a consultant to put the information together.
But is there any need for us to talk to someone at another airport who has an FBO to find out what things they requested in theirs, or things that they might have left out?
I know that the consultant has put together, I don't remember the number of airports, it was probably 15 off the top of my head, comparable airports.
Okay.
And FBO services they provide. I know after this letter that Bill sent out last week, he has got a couple responses back from tenants of what they would, airframe, stuff of that nature, things they would like to see a new FBO be able to maintain or take care of on the field. So I know he's got a couple responses back from his letter. But as far as other individual airports, discussing with them, the only thing we've come up with is what CMT provided us.
But they apparently have gotten information from other airports.
Correct.
Okay.
So back to my question, the letter that we're discussing right now, is this letter that's already gone out to the tenants?
Yes.
Okay.
T-Hangar tenants on the field from Bill Farino.
All right.
If I may, I don't see if we have something in writing, a memorandum of understanding that they're leaving, do we have something that negates this and says they're not leaving? I guess that's a question. If we don't have a document that says this is null and void, we plan on staying.
Well, they have to bid though. If they're gonna stay, they gotta compete with the RFP and win.
Right, but the dates in here would be void. They would just say, we're staying and we'll bid.
They have a current lease with the city of Delaware that expires December 31st of this year.
Right.
So come December 31st, if they choose to leave earlier, as stated in here, that would otherwise December 31st would terminate there.
Right. And I'm assuming that we would entertain a new company or a successful bidder, so to speak, that would start January 1st.
I believe that was the original intent.
In a perfect world, but I have foreseen them having this RFP out by now. You know, I would say it depends on how fast it moves from Crawford, from CMT through the city manager's office to an RFP and back. You know, I know it sounds great. There's 5 months yet to go, but I haven't seen the first document yet from the consultant.
Having worked hundreds of federal contracts, I can tell you that the person holding the contract right now has the inside track if they bid. Because they hold all the cards. They don't have to move. They don't have to come up with an expense to move into the hangar. Their bid can be quite low compared to, or their expense can be low, even though their bid is high enough to get to win the RFP. They don't have to lay out all of the expenses of moving into the hangar because
Understood.
You're already there.
Understood.
Any government contract is, if you own the contract, you've got a leg up on all the competitors.
Understood. But if the RFP has a list of required qualifications, I mean, that would have to be met as well. I'm assuming they
Well,
would
the only
meet all the
qualifications you could probably require are FAA certifications for maintenance.
Right, and potentially, I'm not an attorney, but potentially, you could also limit the amount of, I'll call them helpers or non-certificated mechanics helping from trade schools.
Probably.
Because
Yeah.
I've witnessed in other airports sometimes where we have one gentleman with, or person with a license, and there's 5 college kids wrenching on aircraft.
That's probably legal in FAA standards if they're trained to a certain level, as long as the guy holding the license
signs off.
on the maintenance.
Correct.
I understand. It's very similar to a physician and a
Yeah.
physician's assistant. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm aware. I'd be interested in seeing the RFP before it went out, just for comment reasons.
I think everyone should, be
Yeah.
able to view it.
I don't see how it's gonna get out so that somebody can be approved by January 1st.
I highly understand your concern. How's that for being politically correct? It's happened, but I expected the way they were talking, this was going to move. I mean, at the last meeting was 3 months ago, and they'd already.
Well, you would think they would get to the RFP level pretty quick, but they haven't.
I understand.
I'm going to stay out of that conversation.
Okay, I guess we're already on number 6, the discussion of desired qualifications, right? That's what you just brought up.
Yes, I would like to see what they're putting in the RFP because there's some things we can probably, as from the city's point of view, we can require, and some things potentially we can't require.
And this
Because
was
some
kind
things
of,
fall under, federal rules.
and this was kind of put together, Walt, for if anybody had any certain FAA certifications that they thought would be valuable to add to the RFP. I mean, there's, like I said, airframe or something of that nature. I think that's kind of where this was headed on number 6 is if anybody brought anything today that they thought would be of importance for the new FBO or whoever the FBO may be. And I did write down here that everybody on the commission would like to view the RFP prior to it going out. And I don't,
I would, I can't speak for all the board members. I'd like to see it.
I think we should,
That's,
yeah.
you know, if we have to wait to another commission meeting, that would be what, October?
Yeah.
If not, I mean, I don't see why, and Lane, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see why it couldn't be emailed for everyone to view and make comments on prior to the next commission meeting.
Absolutely. That's easy.
Okay.
We can put a date of when to have comments back by.
Yeah,
Done that in the past.
I don't see why we couldn't do that.
And if I may offer to the chair, if timing becomes critical, I'm not opposed to having a special meeting to review it and rule on it. Well, rule's the wrong word. We don't rule on it, but to advise.
Sounds good.
Okay, are we on to 7 then? Do we have any more discussion about that? Discussion of ODOT FAA grant application for T-Hanger AF resurfacing project.
In front of you, I went ahead and everyone has a copy of the ACIP that we actually go through with our consultant every year. This is kind of an outdated plan because it says November 27th of 2017, but it's the most current one that we're utilizing today. I did apply for an ODOT grant at the beginning of the year for some T-Hanger pavement. We have not heard back on that as of today. I still am very hesitant thinking that we're going to get funding for it, just because it's for T-Hangers and not for taxiways, runways, or ramps or something on the pavement matrix. It's very low priority to them. But, you know, you never know unless you ask. As of today, I haven't heard back from ODOT. I still think we're, you know, if we get something, hopefully we'll be lucky. And maybe we can score like I've done in the past. Is we didn't get the initial grant up front, but other cities couldn't come up with their matching funds, and you know, they called at the last minute asking if I could utilize the money. That's how the ramp was done. So, you know,
Could you add in something on that taxiway for T-Hangers that says secondary use would be for federal and state emergency management parking in case of an emergency in Delaware County?
you could, I'm sure there's ways to score higher.
Yeah.
The ODOT portion, and Janie knows better than I do from being in that area. The ODOT portion, I have not had a lot of luck with upfront winning a grant up front, but I have had a lot of luck in winning a grant down the road when somebody couldn't come up with the funding. The FAA portion, of course, they try to program everything out 5 years, 10 years, everything of that nature, depending on how much entitlement you put towards it. So the big grand scheme, as you can see in the ACIP, was hopefully get enough funding for A through C through an ODOT grant and D through F from an FAA grant, and try to do it all together. Back, commission members can correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say at least a year ago, we were just discussions about raising rates, rental rates, stuff of that nature. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was if they were kind of earmarked for certain projects, that they would not be as opposed to raising the rates. And one of them was the asphalt in front of the T-hangers. That's been at least a year ago, maybe a year and a half. So we tried to, with all of our other asphalt right now in pretty decent shape, so we tried to spearhold that T-hanger area. There's still a large portion of that is not grant eligible. Basically everything outside of the taxi lane going to your T-hanger is not eligible by grant. It's city funded. So even with the grant opportunities, there was still quite a bit of funding that had to be set forth from city for, we'll call them the approach areas into the T-hangers. But with that being said, haven't been told no yet. And then of course we'll be working with programming and stuff on the FAA this fall on trying to get something there. We actually rolled our entitlement funding over, which that's another point winner. The more entitlement money you have back, the better you rank on your project. And they know we're looking for it. So I'd like to tell you that I see it moving forward, but I'm still hesitant on the ODOT side of it. I'm not a grant writer, but I've been told no quite a few times, and I still keep going back for it.
That's a case of when the squeaky wheel
It's
gets
worked.
some action.
It's worked.
I can verify that. At least when I was working. Might be different now, but it's the way it used to work.
And looking down through the ACIP, when we were talking about the apron expansion, basically it was cut in half too compared with the FAA. Last year, with our meeting with the FAA, we actually were looking for twice that size. And they told us clear up front that they would not support that even if we had another facility there right now. They wanted to see it broke down into two projects. So all I can do is keep plugging away, I guess, and keep bending their ears. But I think we've done fairly well compared to surrounding counties.
Well, ODOT has more money now to give out, and they are giving out
Correct.
larger amounts of money than in the past, so at some point, I would think I'm not sure how long that money's gonna keep rolling in for them, but I know a lot of the airports were in pretty bad shape, when I was still there, but at some point, they should be catching up. So it might be that T-hangar areas will be a higher priority.
Yeah, right now they rank very low on the list.
Mhm.
But that's the bottom of the pavement list, besides basically probably a parking lot for vehicles. But if nothing else, we can still push forward with using the entitlement funding through our FAA. So, it may just take a little longer.
That's what, 300,000?
That's what we're up to now because we rolled 2018's funding. So when we go in this fall, we'll be at 300,000.
So is the city and county putting any money up for it?
The county does not.
The city's not putting any money?
The city does, the county does not. Yeah, the city does the match funding, and then the city on this project will actually have to do, I don't have my glasses, I don't know why I left them in my car. Sponsor match $43,000 of this project, then it says other local, the $67,000. That'll be city match funding because of the driveway approach areas to the T-hangars, plus our 5% match funds towards the grant projects, so.
How come the county won't put anything?
County has no involvement.
With the
Land.
airport at all, and I think it might be a good question for you to talk to Mr. Holman about. I know that there's been,
Well, I mean, it's like the fairgrounds.
We
City
do-
county, city county.
well, yeah, but I tell you, and I can tell you from my street side of things, and I'm going back a few years, that we did more assistance with the county fairgrounds than the county did. Every time they needed something, they called upon us when I overseen the street department. They needed pavement, they needed stuff moved, they needed swept. And, I was kind of, why don't you guys call the county? So we don't get any assistance from the
I mean,
county.
they're gonna gain as much from the airport as the city is.
I 100% agree.
So
This is nothing new.
does one of us need to go to a county commissioners meeting and bring that up? Or?
It's been my understanding that over the years, like when Gus was still here, there was conversations with the county about being a joint effort at the airport, and they were not interested.
That might be a good conversation for you and Mr. Holman to have. And he could probably bring you up to speed a little bit more than we can, because I know he's been involved in those communication processes. I mean, there's been, discussions of, the joint venture would be great. And they're benefiting from something that the city's basically paying
Absolutely,
for. Probably more so than the city.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I agree with you. And I know that Mr. Holman has approached that a couple of times.
Probably the only way that's gonna happen if there's a port authority formed.
And that's been brought up too. That was probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that Port Authority was mentioned.
That's part of the RFP with the consultant is to also look into the possibility of.
Or the business plan?
Yeah, the business plan.
Oh, good luck with that.
Any more discussion on number 7?
So the $300,000, if we use that for the taxiway, the T-hanger streets, that's not gonna get much accomplished, is it?
You won't get half. If you do T-hangers A through F, you're pushing close to $900,000. I think was the estimate.
Because it's your.
T-hanger A, design and construction was 408,000 and B was 452,000. So yeah, by the time it's said and done, you're gonna be close to $900,000.
So what, they're having to dig it all out, is that?
I think what you're gonna run into there, and I haven't cored it myself, I think you have minimum pavement. There's probably areas that you can mill and fill. There's probably areas that when you mill, there's probably gonna be nothing left on an 1.5 to 2 inch mill. So, especially on your drive aprons, I think you'll run into a lot of very light duty pavement there.
I have a question. Are we talking about the access road for cars to the hangars?
That has nothing to do with this project.
T-hanger taxiway.
So it is the aircraft taxiway that takes
Only.
you to the main
To the
ramp and Alpha taxiway?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the back
okay, good.
portion. The city paid for that
You know, just-
14 years ago, I think, 15 years
That
ago.
used to be gravel, and one year they did a little bit, the next year.
A little bit more.
Right.
Finally got down.
Well, it's kind of like the extension on the parking lot was the same thing. When I was over Stop Streets, we did that also.
One thing on the pavement, you know, like hangers A, B, and C, you got the grass between them, but once we get to D, E, and F, that pavement is door to door, and they are only paying for those 25 feet, or 20 feet down.
Right down the center of the
So
project.
everything on both sides of that has to be covered by the city. They only pay where the aircraft passes.
Everything else is considered a drive approach.
Well, that complicates it quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Gets expensive quickly too.
Is it all asphalt though, or is some of it concrete?
Everything that I know is asphalt.
It's all asphalt?
Yeah. Like I said, unless, I wasn't here when they put it down, unless we peel some asphalt and find some concrete underneath, which I highly doubt. What would be D, E, and F would have been, I was in engineering at that time. And I know there was no concrete utilized then. I think it was my first year here in engineering when D, E, and F was built, or right around that time frame. So, yeah, and from what I'm seeing on A, B, and C, I'd be highly surprised if there's any concrete underneath that. You would probably see reflective cracking and freeze thaw cycles if there was any concrete there at all. I haven't seen any of that.
A, B, and C, and now that is the oldest pavement on the field. That was done when the runway was moved and extended to 5,000 feet. Then D, E,
I said D, E, and F, I wasn't
D,
here for
E,
that.
and F, that was done in 2002, something like that.
Late
99,
90s.
2002.
Late 90s.
Aerospace place was done in 2004. They didn't use any concrete there.
I think it was around 98 when those were built.
Could be. Okay.
Well, between the hangar rows, I understand where they may have to mill down because you can't have that higher. You know, it has to be pretty level or close to the floor of the T-hangars. But the actual, I hate to call it taxiway, but the taxiway that takes you to the main ramp and the official Alpha taxiway, unless you've got major soft spots, I would think a hefty overlay would be.
You have to worry about drainage too at the same time.
Right.
If you just
Put a crown
overlay,
in it.
well, if you just overlay what you have there, you have to make sure water's seep flowing both directions and it gets away from everything.
Right.
So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And then my personal feeling is you build a stronger base, and then you're probably looking at doing, they call it like a SAMI in between the two. And a SAMI coat will take and keep the reflective cracking from coming up through your new asphalt. So they would probably have to look at doing something of that nature. That's kind of the design and construction. I'm not an engineer. I mean, you put down thousands of tons of asphalt, but you can't design and construct it.
Right, right. No, I understand. Be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yep. So,
No.
the ACIP is in front of you. I just let everyone see it, but this from time to time when we speak with the in the fall, usually around the end of October, beginning of November. Sometimes this gets tweaked a little bit, and that's why you see the November 27th, 2017, is after the last time we spoke to them, they kind of spearhead what direction they want us to go also, and where they're willing to spend the money. So that update, you probably won't see anything until this fall in the ACIP with the FAA.
Did they say anything about ODOT say anything about the grant program at the conference? No?
I'm trying to remember.
Because July would have started their new fiscal year.
They're running behind this year, and I think part of it, which I haven't mentioned yet, is they have that new supplemental grant process coming out. I don't know if that, it's like $1 billion, but basically you have to have something paper ready, and you have to be able to, it's supposed to be for 18, 19, and 20, and I just heard about this last week.
This is ODOT or FAA?
I think this is through, I'm not gonna lie, I can see the email in front of me. I can't remember. I want to say it's ODOT.
I thought it was at 1
billion over
Billion with the
the
B?
next 3 years.
Oh, okay.
But right now, we don't qualify. I think it's got to be a paper-ready project. There's a lot of stipulations for 18. And one of them is it has to be submitted by like August 3rd. I actually made a phone call to Mark. I was trying to get a little bit more information about it because I just read about it. Now, it's got to be like a non-relievered GA airport. There's quite a few things for 18 that, and being a paper-ready project, we don't have right now at this point. But what we can do is get a grasp on everything for 19 and 20 and try to go after something then. And that's with Bill being off this week. Of course, I couldn't discuss it with him, but that's going to be a major deal. I think for 2019, from what I read, looking at my notes here, trying to find it, I think that has to be submitted by October 31st of this year. And I think the 18 one has to be by August 3rd of this year. Like I said, it just came out in the last week that I've seen it. And I don't know if that's part of it. Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it came through ODOT.
Okay.
I'm getting my grants confused because I was speaking about the Volkswagen diesel emission thing earlier today with Carolyn. So I was sitting there thinking, was that where the money's coming from? But that's a whole different topic. Yeah, that's something that's up and coming, and I don't have. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Our consultants, nobody really have their fingers on it yet because it's so fresh and so new. But when I did talk to Mark right after I seen the email, he's like, you really don't have anything that qualifies. Bill will be back next week. It's due August 3rd. We'll do what we can do. Let's look at it. He said, but what we really need to do is put something together for October 31st and make it for 19 and 20. So, and I don't think a lot of people heard about it. Everybody here is surprised. So I was surprised when I seen the email. So that's something else that's up and coming that we can try to gain some funding from. That's all I have on grants. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I'm good. I'm good for a change.
Ready to go to the update of the business plan?
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun there a little bit earlier, but basically, as I said, I have seen nothing on an RFP. The only thing I asked the question there last week is where are we at in the process, and I was told it was in CMT's hands, but was told the first two priorities were A and B that are listed here on your commission agenda sheet. The building rental, fuel and ground lease rates, and the RFP language for maintenance fixed base operator were supposed to be the number 1 and 2 things that they were to get back to Mr. Holman and Bill Farino as soon as possible. I'd like to give you more information, but I have none.
Then we can move on to the EAA event.
Ken, if you want, doesn't matter to me either way. Go ahead.
I don't know if you're aware, but Ford Tri-Motor is coming August 9th through the 12th. It's actually going to be here on Wednesday, the 8th. They're going to do a media. It's going to just arrive here and get hangered on Wednesday. They're gonna do a media flight on the 9th, and then they'll do rides from 2 to 5 that day. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday will be rides, I think, from 9 till 5. I think it's $70 in advance and $75 a day for adults, and I think 30 for kids under 17. But the EAA chapter is planning to try to have kind of advertise that people fly in during the event. They don't have anything specific coming with it, but children under 17, $50.
$50, not 30.
I guess they're gonna have memorabilia that comes with the Ford Tri-Motor that will be displayed with it, and food vendors, things like that. They're just kind of hoping for good weather and see if they can get flying in traffic.
What building are they doing that in? Or is it gonna-
Excuse me?
What building are they doing that in, or? is it-
It will be on the ramp. They're just gonna keep the Tri-Motor in the corporate hangar while it's here. At the end of the event, it'll go in the hangar and come back out the next day. Pretty much up there by the, where the Compass Rose and the fuel farm is, in that area where we normally park a corporate jet. They'll come off of the main taxiway, turn at the terminal, and they're gonna stage people that are riding in the terminal when it's shut down. They have their own people that come with the Tri-Motor. That group gets out, group from the terminal goes out to the plane.
Is this a different Tri-Motor than the one that's up there at Port Clinton?
I don't know.
I believe it is.
I think it's the same one.
Oh, you think it's the?
People I've talked to, yeah,
What's
or
their,
it used to be there.
yeah, it used to be there. Wasn't there conversation too? It was one of the two original ones out of CMH's actual airplane was when Bernie was speaking about it.
Yeah, it was one of the.
Two original ones that flew out of Port Columbus.
Yeah, I don't know about two. They had the flyover from New York to
Yes.
Columbus, and then everybody got on a train.
That's what it, yeah.
But
Yep.
it's one of the two that's in the picture
That's
from the
correct.
grand opening of that.
That's what it was. I remember him speaking about that.
In the flyer, the picture that's in the flyer says City of Fort Clinton.
Oh, so
Side.
that is, yeah.
There you go.
Which it's advertised in a lot of places.
Mhm.
All right, so we're up to staff comments. Yeah,
Go ahead, Kevin.
The only comments I have is, we are working around the airfield to get ready for the event, painting some things. We're glad that, it's gotten dry and we can get caught up on moments so we can do some other things but run. So, we're, trying to pay attention to some of the things that we maybe don't get to until later in the season. But, anyway, right now we're kind of in preparation mode for this event to do what we can. And we have been busier since we've gotten out of some of that stormy weather. And I do think with the runway extension, I don't know the exact numbers, but we have had more aircraft taking larger uploads of fuel than we had in the past. I think we've done a 1,600 gallon, a 14, and a 13, and 1,150
This summer.
this summer, and I think 4 of those were going to the West Coast. And one of the aircraft in particular was one of them that we weren't able to accommodate. It could land at our airport and take off unless it was wet conditions. Couldn't put on enough fuel to make it to the West Coast, but
Right.
we've had one of those in particular that we've been able to service. I think went to San Diego, and that was, I think that was when we put 1,600 gallons on.
Mhm.
So, I do think the runway extension is showing some benefit.
Great.
Good to hear.
So do we have?
So,
I have
Right
one,
weather for the tri-motor, right?
yeah,
hopefully better than this weekend for the car show.
yeah.
It's not looking good for that. I had actually a phone call with the city manager's office roughly 2 weeks ago. Wesley and Woods complaint of low flying planes. Some of you that have your plane hangared at the airfield, seen Kevin send out a little friendly reminder notice about flying flying low, staying in the pattern, stuff of that nature. She was pretty upset, and I tried to explain to her about Fisher's Ag Service was there the week before, flying, crop dusting, and it's just so coincidental that every time that they're there is when we get this phone call. Not from just this lady, it's usually somebody different. But so I expressed my concerns with her. I let her know that, you know, I'm sure that has something to do with the noise, the low flying planes. She was worried about her kids, you know, out front playing the whole 9 yards. She was pretty upset. Said her husband's a pilot. And I went ahead and we sent a letter out to everyone just as a friendly reminder. And we did contact OSU also because they utilize our airfield so much for their CFIs do for their school. And that's kind of what we're seeing. I told her that, you know, our guys, when they're out there mowing and stuff, you know, I've even been standing on the ramp and, you know, planes caught my attention. What's, you know, what's happening? What's that? You know, why are they so close? What's going on? I said, you know, we all look up there. We all try to do our due diligence. I said, but you know what I really need is, I said, if you see this happening, is I need a tail number, date and the time, and we can really address it a lot easier from there. I had to explain to her that I was not an airport police department.
How'd that work for you?
Not very well in the beginning, but after I let her know that we contacted, you know, our pilots are at the airfield and contacted OSU and stuff of that nature, she was very, very courteous then, I guess is a nice way of putting it, compared to the first initial conversation. But, you know, that's the first one I can remember in a long time. And they just called straight to the city manager's office. But once again, it's coincidental right after we have 5 crop dusters in there that we have a phone call within the following week. And it seems to happen every time.
Well, I flew out of here I think both the days that they were here, maybe they were here longer. And I noticed that they weren't necessarily, and I'm not the FAA.
Flying any pattern.
There you go, any pattern.
Correct.
Normally when you fly perpendicular across a runway, you're at least 500 above pattern before you enter a downwind leg.
Correct.
And these guys they were flying overhead at 500 foot in this turn and burn, drop it in, refuel it with chemicals and go. And then when they took off, as you might imagine, they didn't even fly up to pattern altitude because they're doing all their spraying at 100 feet.
Correct.
So they took off and they head out over to Corey, and they really just got above treetops and disappeared in the horizon.
Sometimes they didn't. I
Yeah,
kind of
above the
cutting right across
treetops.
Wilgus. Yeah, sometimes they were cutting right across Wilgus's field. I mean, you know, right
Yeah.
midstream. So
Yeah, ag pilots are a different breed.
I know, and but it's coincidental. That's usually seems to be when we get a complaint.
Right.
We wait so many months, so many years without any complaints, and it seems like when the ag service shows, we get one every
We don't
time.
get complaints when they're flying and not flying out of here.
Mhm.
They
Radnor area or somewhere.
They were
What-
spraying gypsy moth the week or 2 weeks before, and we got a few calls, and they weren't operating out of our airfield. They just, when they're spraying gypsy moth, they're pretty close to the city, as you can imagine.
We were trying to play golf that day. They were flying right over the golf
Were you one of
course.
the calling complaints?
No, I was trying to calm everyone down.
And the Department of Agriculture used to put up kind of like realtor-sized signs around the area to let you know the week of whatever will be spraying. I didn't see them this time. They send me a little postcard to let me know they'll be in the area, but it's always sometime during the middle of June. There's no for sure date, but anyway, like Joe said, that's usually when we get the calls, and it doesn't always have to be that they're operating out of the airfield. That
Vicinity.
day, there was 2 crop dusters, 2 different entities that were working out, and there was 5 of them every 20 minutes, you know, one was in, one was out. So it went until sundown.
That's all I have.
Member comments then?
We had talked at one time that JEGS was in discussion with the city about possibly building a new hangar. Has there been any more?
Right now, well, I shouldn't say right now, as of probably 9 days ago, The last I know is it's in their hands. They're not waiting on anything from the city. I'm just speculating, being racing season, it's not on the top of their priority list right now. But everything that they've asked for that I know of from the city, they have to what they need to proceed. So
So it's not totally off the table or?
No.
Okay.
And like I said, I actually spoke with their pilot, chief pilot, 3 weeks ago maybe. When I was out there, I probably spoke to Andy 3 weeks ago, somewhere in that realm. And I just asked him, I said, you guys are not waiting on anything from the city, correct, that you're aware of? And he said, no, as far as he knows, it's all in their hands. But if you look at their schedule, their flying schedule here lately, they've been really busy. And like I said, with racing season going on and the grandsons and everything going, I imagine it's probably going to be fall for, we may hear back from them. I don't think it's on their have to list right now. But no, I don't think it's, I think they're still very sincere about
Okay.
moving forward.
Good. That's all I have.
Are we ready to adjourn then? We call the motion for that?
No, happy to be here. I can't tell you how happy I am to listen to noise complaints once again.
I know we're just sending them then.
No, you don't want me to answer. Trust me.
No, I do want you to answer them, trust me.
Other than that, I'm good.
Well, I guess I was remiss in welcoming you to the group.
Oh,
Actually, that's probably my fault. We had it on one agenda and then you were, you were out of town and then we had another member join and so I accidentally forgot to put you back on as a welcome, so I apologize.
no problem.
This is our new commission member, Chris Acker, so he is our county representative.
Okay. I've got to ask, pilot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What, may I ask, would you fly?
Helicopters and fixed wing.
Oh, okay. That's good.
39 years as an Army helicopter pilot.
Okay. All right.
I had a Mooney out at the airport there for a while, a year, I think. We sold it.
Well, good. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. 6,000 flight hours, but
That's good.
yeah, it gets my insurance down a little bit.
Right, right.
All right, do we need a motion to adjourn or?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. How's that?
Good, thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No gavel.
He can